Utah, a state known for the Rocky Mountains, Salt Lake City, the Rocky Mountains, some friend of mine that I wanted to do a video collab with about the Sunrun Kagura franchise. Haven't I done this bit before? The state of Utah is one that is often not talked about much, and I don't think I need to be the one to tell you as to why. When it comes to weather, the same applies. Weather in Utah is relatively tame most of the time, with the most extreme weather in the state being related to flooding or severe blizzards. But there was one time where the state of Utah, more specifically its capital, Salt Lake City, came face to face with one of nature's most terrifying phenomena. On August 11th, 1999, what started out as a cloudy day in the capital quickly became one that the residents of the city would never forget. An isolated F2 tornado touched down and moved through downtown Salt Lake City, causing millions in damages as it caught the city by surprise. The city has only seen a handful of tornadoes in total since records have been kept. But it was the 1999 F2 that left the biggest impact on the capital. While not the strongest tornado observed in the state, the damage observed in Salt Lake City was severe enough to consider the F2 tornado to be the worst tornado in the state's history. So today, I will be taking a look at the Salt Lake City F2 tornado, the state of severe weather so far in 1999, the synopsis, the tornado itself, the aftermath, and the legacy it has. Welcome to Nature's Fury. 1999 was a weird year for tornadic activity. The year itself didn't have a ton of notable outbreaks, but the ones that were notable are remembered to this day. Mainly because of one tornado in particular. But let's go over what 1999 had to offer so far in terms of tornadoes. From January 21st through the 23rd, a total of 127 tornadoes touched out across the Midwestern and Southern United States, with 87 tornadoes touching down on the 21st. Of those, there was one F4 which impacted Clay County, Arkansas, and an F3 tornado which hit Little Rock, Arkansas. From April 8th through the 9th, a widespread tornado outbreak occurred in the Midwestern United States and the Carolinas, including 3 F4 tornadoes. Of course, the most infamous outbreak of the year, and perhaps one of the most infamous tornado outbreaks of all time, was an outbreak sequence spanning from May 2nd through the 8th, with most of the activity occurring from May 3rd through the 4th. During this outbreak, a violent F5 tornado tore through the communities of Bridge Creek and Moore, Oklahoma, with recorded winds of 301 miles per hour, with a margin of error of 20 miles per hour. Another small outbreak occurred from May 9th through the 12th, including a short-lived but violent F4 tornado in Texas. From then on, a few more significant tornado outbreaks occurred from late May and into June, but after June, tornado activity died down. But coming into August, another weather system was beginning to show signs of producing severe weather across portions of the United States. But real quick, only a small portion of the people who like these weather documentaries are subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy what I do, consider subscribing. It helps support what I do and tells me I'm doing something right. Also, I have a Discord server that I frequently talk, and link to that is in the description. Anyways, back to the Salt Lake City F2 tornado. It goes without saying that tornadoes in the American West are rare. And I did kind of cover this topic back when I covered the 2010 Arizona tornado outbreak, but now we are further north, so I feel like it's worth going over it again. The main issues come down to moisture and the geography of the state. Regarding moisture, the western part of the state is a desert, which if you paid any attention to earth sciences in school, you'd realize that deserts aren't really known for high moisture content, so there's problem number one. But the issue of moisture content also stems from the local geography of the state of Utah. The state of Utah has 3 distinct parts to it. There are deserts on the western side, the Colorado Plateau and the southern Rocky Mountains to the east, and the Wasatch Range smack dab through the middle of the state. The big issue that arises from the local geography of the state is elevation. Now, I don't want to bother you with the specifics, but just know that due to how temperatures decrease with elevation and how the friction of the mountainous terrain affects tornadoes, severe weather in states like Utah, and for a matter of fact, areas west of the Rocky Mountains are very rare, especially the further north you go. But if severe weather does occur in the state of Utah, it's typically between May and August. So, what happened this time? On the morning of August 11th, an upper-level trough moved into northern Utah from Nevada. In advance of that trough were warm southerly winds that blew over the Salt Lake Valley. By noon on August 11th, there was evidence that either an old frontal boundary had existed, or a convergence zone had developed across the Salt Lake Valley due to breezes from the Great Salt Lake meeting with the southerly winds. That morning, a sounding from Salt Lake City suggested that there was some vertical wind shear alongside the presence of a jet stream in northern Utah. As this was occurring, thunderstorms began to form over the Oakers and over the southern Great Salt Lake. The environment at hand could allow for severe thunderstorms and potentially even tornadoes to touch down in Utah. But again, it's also Utah, a state that, on average, only gets 1 or 2 tornadoes a year. So the threat was not expected to be very significant. Of course, the last thing that locals in Salt Lake City would expect at first glance from looking outside was a significant tornado. The morning started calm with some cloudy weather, but the clouds continued to get darker and darker. The winds were calm with the exception of a few microbursts across northern Utah. But as thunderstorms continued to bubble up across Utah, it was only a matter of time before something took advantage of this environment. And at 12:41 p.m. Mountain Time, a tornado touched down right over Salt Lake City. At 12:41 p.m., a tornado touched down in the southwestern portions of Salt Lake City, initially producing F0 damage. By 12:45 p.m., the tornado reached F2 strength. The tornado would fluctuate between F2 and F1 intensity as it crossed I-15, but as it passed to the northwest of Pierpont, the tornado would maintain F2 intensity, causing a strip of F2 damage, including severe damage to the Delta Center. An outdoor retailers convention was being held that day, with one of the large outdoor tents collapsing, killing 1. The tornado would then damage the Wyndham Hotel, blowing out the windows, causing the shattered glass to fall from the sky, raining down on people who were attempting to escape from the collapsed tents. The tornado knocked over scaffolding and shearing off of a crane at the LDS Assembly Hall construction site. All of this occurred as skycams across the city captured the tornado on film, with the tornado causing power flashes and an explosion, with an orange fireball illuminating in the city as the tornado hit a power substation. The tornado weakened briefly as it moved further northeast, before widening out to its peak width of 150 yards and still fluctuating between F1 and F2 strength. The tornado moved through the state capital, causing moderate damage and ripping out several large trees near the Capitol and in Memory Grove. The tornado would begin to shrink in size, intensifying to an F2 tornado as it moved through the avenues, a residential area in the city, damaging hundreds of trees and blowing roofs off of several houses in the avenues before lifting as the tornado approached mountainous terrain. The tornado was on the ground for 14 minutes, traveling a little over 4 miles, having a peak width of 150 yards, causing $170.5 million in damages, injuring 80 and killing 1. The tornado wasn't the only threat with this cell, as hail of 1¼ inches in diameter was reported ahead and after the tornado passed through Salt Lake City. The Salt Lake City tornado was not the only tornado that formed from this outbreak, but it was the only F2 plus tornado that occurred. However, many people were reeling from what just occurred. A tornado just went through a downtown urban city, and the damage was the worst seen in the state of Utah's history. Damage from the tornado was localized to the roughly 4-mile path that began in the western portions of downtown Salt Lake City, up to the mountainous terrain where the tornado lifted. But the effects of the damage were widespread throughout Salt Lake City. For one, the tornado's direct impacts on numerous power stations throughout its roughly 4-mile path led to most of Salt Lake City losing power. The tornado was also unwarned, as it formed and dissipated seemingly too fast for it to be warned. But let's go over the damage. The tornado initially caused minor damage, but as it strengthened, the damage became more severe, with the first major site of damage being at the outdoor retailing convention, where a large tent laid in ruin. Just across the street, the Wyndham Hotel was hit as well, with windows being shattered. The nearby Delta Center suffered the same fate, with numerous windows being shattered at the convention center. Outside of that, the majority of damage done was minor to moderate in the forms of roof damage to numerous buildings and homes and downed trees, which the residents of Salt Lake City helped to clean up in the aftermath, along with professional crews. In fact, the current governor's desk that is used by the governor of Utah was made from the wood of the downed trees that fell during the tornado. President Bill Clinton signed a federal disaster declaration and toured the damage in Salt Lake City. The tornado, despite being rated as an F2 tornado, caused severe damage to areas across downtown Salt Lake City, with damages of over $170 million. The Salt Lake City tornado's singular death was the first death in the state of Utah from a tornado since 1886, which is low considering the tornado went unwarned due to how slow the NextRad radar was at retrieving data. That is, by the time a couplet was caught on radar, the tornado was pretty much gone, which is a whole nother can of worms that I do not want to open right now. Anyways, time to wrap this up. When people talk about tornadoes that have hit major metropolitan areas, people often look back to the 1997 Miami F1 tornado, the 2008 Atlanta tornado, or the 4 times that St. Louis, Missouri has gotten hit by a tornado because St. Louis, Missouri, and all things considered, it's pretty understandable as to why. But it's the Salt Lake City tornado which is the one that I find really fascinating, primarily because it happened in Utah of all places. A 200-yard wide F2 tornado that was on the ground for 14 minutes isn't seen as very impressive, but put that in Utah, but more specifically the state capital, you got something that people will remember for a long time to come. It's easily the most remembered tornado in Utah's history, because its competition is an F3 tornado that only ate trees and didn't really do anything else besides that. The Salt Lake City tornado is one that I found quite interesting whenever I was researching it. From its setup to what it did, to the fact that despite being unwarned, only one person passed from the tornado. It's a tornado that I think warrants a look back. It's a tornado that the residents of Salt Lake City, nor myself, will forget anytime soon. So yeah, short video again. Wow, I'm surprised too. Wow, managing to get this done so fast. Next video I'm getting out before the end of the month is going to be going over all of the documentaries that I made this year alongside corrections. All things considered, it's a video I'm making for myself and the people who have been following this channel for goodness knows how long. It's going to be more comedic in nature than what I normally do, so expect to facepalm at my desperate attempts at comedy. I already have a set video scheduled for next year, so if you want to see that, I made a community post about it a while back. Special thanks to my proofreaders, those being Rishi and Alice, and special thanks to Celtic White for the character stills that I use for all my videos. I'll be commissioning him soon for additional emojis and channel badges so I can get YouTube memberships going. Special thanks to those subscribed to the channel Patreon, those being Ace Cooper, Maxwell Ludi, and Montpelier at the Alfie's Army tier, and Basilius of Stupidonia, Jacario, King Shisa, Neon Binary, Origin, and Worm Off the String at the Off Mini tier. If you want to have access to full uncut interviews and my scripts alongside other things in the future, consider subscribing to the Patreon, or the YouTube membership thing when I finish that. Alright, I'm done here, so hope you all have a happy holiday, make sure to comment, like, subscribe, share the video around, all that jazz. You all stay safe out there, and I'll see you all soon.